they're tiny. Oh my gosh, they're very small. They're super small.
Hi, my name is Rachel, and welcome to the Sago Show, where we're exploring the roots and digging deeper into the history behind some of our favorite Filipino dishes and sweets. Today, I'm going to be doing a Filipino bakery essential, Mamon. This idea came from a fellow Filipina friend, Lindsay, so Lindsay, this Mamon episode goes out to you. First, combine 1 cup of sifted flour, a half teaspoon of baking powder, and a pinch of salt. Set this aside, and in another bowl, we will be separating out 6 egg yolks from the egg whites. While I do this, I want to talk about the theme for this episode. This episode is a little different because I'm not really going to be talking about the history of Mamon itself. I'm going to be talking about what Mamon symbolizes for me. Because when I think about Mamon, I think about Goldilocks Bakery, which is one of the most well-known Filipino bakery franchises in the US. And in contrast to the predominantly white suburban neighborhood of my upbringing, where I felt very distanced from what it meant to be Filipino, I spent many childhoods of my summer in the LA area where I'd go to visit my lola. In my hometown, there really weren't any Filipino restaurants, but when we were visiting Cerritos, we would always eat out at the Filipino spots. I have a very strong memory of walking into this brightly lit Goldilocks, seeing a big picture of lumpiang sariwa on the menu board, and the counters carrying all of the brightly colored wrapped baked goods, and Mamon is one of those. Back to our egg yolks and egg whites, I'm going to mix together the egg yolks and 1/3 cup of sugar until they get nice and fluffy. And then mix in a 1/4 cup of melted butter and a 1/4 cup of water. Once that's done, you should have a pretty aerated yolky mixture. We're going to take this and gradually mix in the flour mixture with a spatula before putting this into the stand mixer for a few minutes to combine. Setting that mixture aside, I've now cleaned my stand mixer before adding in our 6 egg whites, which we will be whipping to medium peaks. Along the way, we're also going to gradually add in a 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar and 1/3 cup of sugar. As I do this, and this is the first time I'm doing a meringue, I'm gonna cross my fingers that these turn out correctly. I think about visiting my lola in Cerritos, which has a really significant Filipinx community. And I see Goldilocks as this magical place that was so different from any place in my hometown. And that's really where I had my first realization that there existed communities of Filipino and Filipinx people, where Filipino bakeries and restaurants comprised a whole complex of stores. The first time I saw my parents excitedly order their favorite Filipino foods. But most of all, this is the first time in America that I saw lots of people who looked like me. And now that I have medium peaks, I'm going to carefully fold in the egg whites into our egg yolk mixture in parts. While I do that, I'll say that a lot of my Filipinx identity formation has been through food. Because of these strong memories of going to Filipino enclaves, going to a Goldilocks for the first time, but upon returning to my hometown, how this has been dangerous to my understanding of what it means to be Filipino or Filipinx is that it had far too simplified and stripped down a Filipinx identity to a Goldilocks, to Jollibee, to ube ice cream. Just like you can't form a whole American identity around McDonald's or, I don't know, Trader Joe's. For the majority of my life, I have not felt Filipino enough, and so I've been trying to pin down what is it exactly that I'm trying to reclaim. And with that, I'm pouring the Mamon mixture into the greased brioche molds. I wish I had larger ones, but I just have these cute little mini 3-inch tin steel brioche molds, and I'm also gonna do a dozen in my regular muffin tin. I'll make sure to tap each one to let some of the air bubbles come up, and then these will go in the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 25 minutes, or until a toothpick comes out clean. Once we take them out, I'll turn all of them over onto parchment paper and let them cool. After they've cooled, we can carefully remove the molds to reveal these delightfully light mini Mamon. Just like in the ensaymada episode, we need to wait until these are completely cooled, and we will lather on a butter and sugar mixture, which is equal parts powdered sugar and softened butter. We'll spread this on top of each and sprinkle shredded cheddar cheese on top. And while I top these, I'll close out by saying that this idea of the Filipinx identity that I've had in my head, I think it's really just a caricature and perpetuates this idea that the Philippines has a monolithic identity, which is not true at all. There is no one Filipino-American identity. And that means that if you are Filipino in America, then you will always be Filipino. And your individual experience matters. Whether you are mixed, you immigrated, if you don't speak your parents' language, or your family has been here for generations, you are Filipino, and that is always going to be enough. This concept is freeing for me, but I think it also means that as a Filipinx in the diaspora, I need to dig deeper. And here are the questions that I often think about. What are the circumstances that led to me being in the diaspora? And do I know how imperialism and capitalism harmed my ancestors and how it still harms living Indigenous people who are fighting today for environmental and land protection in the Philippines? Creating this show has pushed my thinking and helped me ask questions I never thought to ask before, and I hope it helps you too. I am so stoked that these turned out. They're incredibly light and airy. They ended up much better than the ones that I made in my muffin tin, so I highly recommend getting these tins or even larger ones that you could use for ensaymada too. And the muffin tin ones are fine. I probably also didn't figure out the perfect timing for my tin. So I'll say, thank you for watching today, and I am so very grateful and thankful for you. I would love if you can like this video, subscribe if you haven't, and click on the bell to set your notifications so that you can stay plugged in for the next episode next week on The Sago Show. My name is Rachel. Salamat.